परमेश्वर का धाम है। हर बाला देवी की प्रतिमा, बच्चा बच्चा राम है, बच्चा बच्चा राम है। चंदन है इस देश की माटी, तपोभूमि हर ग्राम है। चंदन है आदर्श जहाँ पर परमेश्वर का धाम है। हर बाला देवी की प्रतिमा, बच्चा बच्चा राम है, बच्चा बच्चा राम है। चंदन है इस देश की माटी, तपोभूमि हर ग्राम है। चंदन है आदर्श जहाँ पर परमेश्वर का धाम है। हर बाला देवी की प्रतिमा, बच्चा बच्चा राम है, बच्चा बच्चा राम है। चंदन है इस देवी की माटी, तपोभूमि हर ग्राम है। चंदन है आदर्श जहाँ पर परमेश्वर का धाम है। हर बाला देवी की प्रतिमा, बच्चा बच्चा राम है, बच्चा बच्चा राम है। चंदन है इस देवी की माटी, तपोभूमि हर ग्राम है। चंदन है आदर्श जहाँ पर परमेश्वर का धाम है। हर बाला देवी की प्रतिमा, बच्चा बच्चा राम है, बच्चा बच्चा राम है। चंदन है इस देवी की माटी, तपोभूमि हर ग्राम है। चंदन है आदर्श जहाँ पर परमेश्वर का धाम है। हर बाला देवी की प्रतिमा, बच्चा बच्चा राम है, बच्चा बच्चा राम है। चंदन है इस देवी की माटी, तपोभूमि हर ग्राम है। चंदन है आदर्श जहाँ पर परमेश्वर का धाम।
Keshav ji, can you unmute yourself? And Saumitraji also. Keshav ji, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Okay.
Can we start? And we have one more.
So, Jayanji, can you do the Parichay of Saumitraji?
Did you give him the right to unmute? Janji, you can unmute yourself now.
Jayanji, you can unmute yourself.
Namaste. So we are going to have Baudhik by Manya Saumitraji today. A brief introduction of Manya Saumitraji. He is a Swayamsevak from childhood, and he's completed his Masters in Engineering from Toronto. He's originally from Pune, Maharashtra, and right now his daitwa is Vishwa Vibhag Sanyojak. Saumitraji, over to you.
Namaste to all of you. We are on the eve of an extremely historic and joyous moment for all of us Hindus spread worldwide. All of us are happy. For some of us who were part of this Rama Janmabhumi movement.
Mr. Ji, there is a small background noise. Just want to check it's from your side or not, because you are the only one who is speaking.
This is better?
Yes, I think that noise goes. Yes.
So it is a historic moment for all of us and a very joyous moment. For some of us who are very much part of the Rama Janmabhumi movement, it is also a very personal kind of happiness. And we were waiting for this moment for so many decades. For some of us who either are too young to be there at that time, it may be just heard from somebody, have some information, but not really full picture. So today, what I will try to do is give a little bit background of the whole Rama Janmabhoomi issue, the movement, and the current result. So as we can see on the screen, and I hope all of you can see, Sri Rama Janmabhoomi, it was a mass movement to first of all liberate, then restore, and now rebuild a grand befitting mandir at the sacred birthplace of Sri Ram, which is in Ayodhya. Somebody may ask, why go in history? Let us look at the future. So George Orwell, the Animal Farm fame writer, who was born in India, British man, he says the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. Perhaps one did not want to be loved so much as to be understood. Who controls the past controls the future. So what it means is, this is not about the past. Actually, this whole movement is about the future of Hindu society and humanity in general. The importance of Ayodhya is immense. It is one of the 7 moksha nagaris, and it is considered sacred from centuries, rather millennia. And the belief is that this one nagari can also give you moksha. So ancient sacred city, obviously on the banks of river Sharayu in Uttar Pradesh, and obviously all of us know birthplace of Sri Ram. Some people need proof, but we don't need proof. We all firmly believe, we have the immense faith in that one. What is the importance of Sri Rama? 7th avatar of Sri Vishnu, the hero of the epic called Ramayana, originally written by sage Valmiki, and eventually a lot of versions in all the languages of Bharat. Kamba Ramayana in Tamil, of course Tulsi Ramayana in Awadhi, and almost all languages in Bharat, Ramayana has been retold. That Sri Ram is called as Maryada Purushottam, an ideal personality to be emulated. And he's called Ramo Vigrahavan Dharmaha, means he's the very embodiment of Dharma itself. So we can learn from his life how to apply Dharma in various situations. So that's kind of ideal that we have been looking towards Rama as. What is the influence of Sri Ram and Ramayana? That is also immense. It is in our lives. In every year's calendar, there are days that are dedicated to Sri Ram Navami, which is the birthday of Sri Ram, and Diwali, which is the biggest Hindu festival, arguably. And that's where the belief is that he returned to Ayodhya, and the citizens of Ayodhya lit up the entire city to welcome Mother Sita, Sri Ram, and Lakshmana after 14 years of Vanavas. The influence is there, living throughout Sri Ram Mandirs in Bharat and around the world. Even here in the United States, if you go to any major Hindu mandir or even a small Hindu mandir, you will certainly find a shrine for Sri Ram and Sita, the Sita Darbar. Ram Leela is a tradition not only in Bharat, but all the Girmitiya countries as well. If you go to the Caribbean countries where Hindus are in big numbers, if you go to Mauritius and Fiji, you'll find that the tradition of Ram Leela is still alive. Then the TV serial Ramayana. Some of us may have not read Ramayana, but we must have watched Ramayana for sure. The TV serial that came in the late 80s, and now during the pandemic, the lockdown in Bharat, when it was retelecast, it broke all the records where 77 million viewers viewed the Ramayana once again, kind of setting a record. Not only in Bharat and wherever Bharatiyas went, but even in countries like Indonesia, Philippines, they have their own versions of Ramayana and Ramayana dance and art. So you'll find that in many Southeast Asian countries. How do you know this? Then recently, the king of Thailand was coronated. His name is Maha Vajiralongkorn, but he's termed as Rama the 10th. So there's a lineage of Rama, and he is the 10th in the lineage. So overall, for millions and millions of Hindu devotees worldwide, Sri Ram is in their hearts, Sri Ram is in the mandirs, Sri Ram is in the life. If Ram is not there, we say that there is nothing in life. It has profoundly, profoundly shaped Hindu culture and civilization for millennia. In fact, Yogi Aurobindo says that there is no other story that has this kind of impact on the shaping of the Hindu culture and civilization as that of Ramayana and Mahabharata, of course. And seen in a different way, Sri Ram and the stories in the Ramayana are a unifying factor for Bharat as a nation. To make it very clear, look at this map. In this map, you'll see from Ayodhya until the place where he went to Lanka, the path of Sri Ram during Vanavas. Then, of course, we can add Mithila or Janakpur, which is the birthplace of Sita, which is in modern-day Nepal. And all these places where Sri Ram actually went throughout the Vanavas are kind of north-south. It is also said that Sri Ram connected Bharat north-south, whereas Sri Krishna connected Bharat east-west, from Dwarka to Pragjotishpur. That is from the west to the east. There are stories and there are places connected to the life of Sri Krishna. And somebody like Ram Manohar Lohia, who was a socialist himself, wrote that it is Rama, Krishna and Shiva who have unified Bharat. Now, if you look at the pictures on the right-hand side, you will see 4 pictures of 4 temples at the bottom. These are magnificent, beautiful temples. They are temples from Panchavati, from Ramte, from Rameshwaram, Sita Elia in Sri Lanka. And of course, there are many, many more temples which are dedicated to some story in the Ramayana, some story where Sri Ram had visited there. But look at such beautiful mandirs that are there. And then look at the top one, top mandir. It is not a mandir, that was the Babri structure. And that Babri structure looks so ugly. And that was the structure that existed in Ayodhya until 1992. That was called the Babri structure. Now it just doesn't make sense that if such beautiful temples exist in all other parts of Bharat to commemorate and to dedicate to Sri Ram, in its own birthplace, why would there not be a magnificent mandir? So what happened in 1528? Babur, the first Mughal emperor, he invaded India and he established the rule in 1526 rather. But in 1528, his lieutenant, Mir Baki, was sent by him and he attacked Ayodhya, destroyed the Rama Janmasthan Mandir and tried to build a mosque there with the same material that the mandir was destroyed. Now, history is not very clear, but there definitely was mandir, but the mandir itself may have been attacked earlier. Although there was a mandir, it was not the same magnificent mandir that existed, but there is a plaque that said that Mir Baki is the one who came and he tried to build a mosque. Now, however, some facts are that if they had built a mosque, then there should have been a minaret to give the azan. That didn't exist in this particular structure. And there was no place for wuzu or wudu, as they call, that is the ritual cleansing before entering a mosque. These two important structures for a mosque were absent. All the archaeological and historical records show that there was a large pre-existing mandir at that same spot. On the right hand side, you will see some pictures which were found from the excavations, and later on in this presentation, we will hear more about this. The one at the bottom, that's called the 12th century inscription. Actually, that was recovered when in 1992, the Karsevaks demolished the Babri structure, and they found this plaque, which is pretty big actually, almost 3.5, 4 feet by 2 feet in a stone, and which clearly mentions when this temple was built in the 12th century, and who built it and who was it dedicated to. It mentions all the avatars of Vishnu, and it mentions that this temple is dedicated to Vishnu Hari, who killed the 10-headed Ravana. Now, just to take a little detour, why was this temple built? Was it an isolated incident? Was it somebody just thought that he'll go and destroy? It was not like that. The whole history for that 500-600 years was a very, very painful history for Hindus and Bharat in general, where destruction of thousands of Hindu mandirs took place by those Islamic invaders who took pride in destroying images, because they thought that they were doing religious work. By doing it, they were called themselves Butchikans, means somebody who is an iconoclast, who breaks murtis. And they would take pride and write about it in their own bakhars and namas that they will publish about their own prowess. And this whole period was of tremendous upheaval. Pillaging and looting was common. And sometimes, like we know in the rule of Aurangzeb, a special tax only for Hindus was levied called the Sazia tax. It was a very, very subjugating kind of tax, very discriminatory. That existed. Not only they did that, they destroyed seats of learning of universities, ancient universities, and their books burnt. A lot of knowledge totally eliminated. And that kind of discrimination existed at that time in most of the rules, Islamic rules, which were there. However, we are proud of our ancestors who put up a heroic resistance for centuries and never gave up. This is a long history, a saga of tremendous amount of tenacity, determination, courage, and undomitable will to rebound. That resistance continued for a very long time. What happened in Ayodhya during the period 1528 to 1858? So, first of all, Hindus never gave up the claim and constantly continued puja and festivals, celebrations at the Rama Janmasthan. How do we know? So there are records of many travelers, including Guru Nanak Dev Ji had visited, but that was before 1528, who describes his visit to the Rama Janmasthan. But later on, a lot of European travelers who visited in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, they have always mentioned that Hindus do puja there. Ram Navami is still a big celebration. So in that dilapidated kind of attempted mosque, Hindus always did puja and service, and at the Janmasthan, as they used to call it. What's also important is not only they mention about Hindus celebrating festivals and doing pujas, there is no mention of Muslims offering namaz at that place. None of the travelers saw it. None of them have recorded it. And this is at different times in history. Even Muslims in their own references, in their own documents, they will call it Masjid-e-Janmasthan. Now, whose Janmasthan? In Ayodhya. So obviously they were referring to the old name, Rama Janmasthan. And the Hindus never stopped. Although there was a kind of an, you can say, tried to occupy this Rama Janmasthan and an attempted encroachment, but they could really never succeed. The Hindus constantly struggled to take back full control and try to rebuild the mandir. Obviously, those were not the times where Hindus were in any kind of political power or any kind of economic situation also, but they never gave up. According to historians, some 70 plus such small and major attempts are there in history. Sometimes the Naga sadhus, sometimes the Sikhs, sometimes some local chieftain, like that, multiple attempts to regain control of the place and to rebuild a mandir was there. So what happened in what happened once in 1950 is that the incidents of unrest and riots continued. How do I move this? You can't move this. No? Yeah, incidents of unrest riots continuously went on for the control of the site. And once what happened is, in 1858, the Nihanga Sikhs, there's an incident which is recorded. By this time, the British had taken over and the British administration, British rule was there. The courts were all by the British because the failed attempt in 1857, the first war of independence. But immediately after that, the Nihanga Sikhs once entered and they started doing Havan, Puja. And one of the Nihang, he took something and wrote Ram, 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 Ram all over the walls of that structure inside, the so-called Babri structure. So then there was a court case and all that is recorded. 1885, this is during the British time now, the first legal claim by Hindus in the court in the British India that was filed by one Mahant of the Akhada there. And he said that we are the managers of this place and that's why we should be given, and we should be given a permission to construct a kind of a shed, because all we have to do the pujas and everything out in the open. So when it is very hot or it is raining, it is very inconvenient, and that is why we need to build this. That went into the code, that was never resolved. But 1949, this murti that you see on the right hand side, that was installed by some devotees, they say, in the midnight and December time. And this murti is of Ram Lala. Ram Lala is baby Rama, and the form of Ram in Ayodhya, naturally, baby Ram was born there, and he remains perpetually a baby. That is the belief, and it's called Ram Lala, means baby Ram. This is the murti that is there even now, and that was installed, but immediately the court ordered that the mandir should be locked and darshan to devotees was closed. Later on, it went on in the court and it continued for a very long time. And only the pujari later on, only the pujari could go inside for the puja, but no other devotees were allowed to go inside for darshan. And basically, it was Ram Lala, although as though he is inside the jail. He was locked up. You see, recently in India had become independent, and after a long struggle against the British colonial rule. And the hope was just like all the colonial monuments and the colonial statues, they were removed in independent India. Many of the names changed of streets and so on, King Street, Queen Street, all of them were changed. The hope was that the sacred sites of Bharat, which were vandalized even before the British came, now in independent India, they will be restored. That was the hope. And there was a great example of the Somnath Mandir in Gujarat, in Saurashtra. And Sardar Patel himself spoke to Gandhiji, took his blessings, and to rebuild this temple of Somnath, which was destroyed by Muhammad of Ghazni. In fact, that temple, it is said, was destroyed many, many times. Every time a new mandir was built there. But this one remained in a very, very sorry state when India got independence. And actually, Kanhaiyalal Munshi, he led the efforts. He with the help of Sardar Patel initially, but later on single-handedly almost. He brought everybody together, the local kings also, and in spite of Pandit Nehru's reservation, he went ahead, and the President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he actually inaugurated this temple, the renovated temple, in 1951. And on this occasion, the President of Bharat, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he says that by rising from its ashes again, this temple of Somnath will proclaim to the world that no man and no power in the world can destroy that for which people have boundless faith and love in their hearts. Today, our attempt is not to rectify history. Our only aim is to proclaim anew our attachment to the faith, convictions, and to the values on which our religion has rested since time immemorial or immemorial ages. So that was the idea behind it. It is not to rectify history, nobody can do it, but it is to regain the pride that now we are independent, not just politically, but now we can think free. And anything that has deep meaning for us in our hearts, we should be able to recreate that. That was the idea. Now, coming back to the Ayodhya movement. So now this is the last and decisive movement that we are looking at. At that time when it started, it was already declared that this is going to be a decisive movement. Now we can say with pride, but at that time it was tremendous confidence that the movement started with, when in 1984, in the Dharma Sansad organized by the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, which is the kind of a Dharma parliament comprised of all the sadhus, sannyasis, Shankaracharyas, Mathadipatis of various Pantha, Sampradaya, Dharmas in our tradition, they come together and they gave a directive that we have to regain control of Rama Janmabhumi, Krishna Janmabhumi, and Kashi Vishwanath. These are three because there are thousands of temples which are destroyed. We cannot go back history, we cannot change it. So we are not even going to go after all those temples that were destroyed. Let them be. Forget about them. But these three are extremely important as far as the Hindu ethos is concerned, and these we need to regain. Actually, in 1983, the idea for this movement actually came from two Congress leaders. Dawood Dayal Khanna, actually, one Congress leader, a very senior leader who was a minister also, he suggested, in the presence of Pujaniya Rajju Bhaiya at that time and Gulzarlal Nanda. We were present, and in 1983, in a Vishwa Hindu Parishad event, he kind of mentioned this. In 84, Dharma Sansad passed this resolution, and it was decided that the movement is going to be led by the Vishwa Hindu Parishad. Immediately, there was a Rama Janaki Ratha Yatra, so you can see how the movement ramped up. This was mainly in Uttar Pradesh, and the idea was that locks that are there on the Ram Mandir should be opened. That was the only the demand at that time, that pictures of Ram inside the jail were published, and this Ram Janaki Ratha Yatra started creating awareness. Many people didn't know that this is the situation in Ayodhya. In 1986 itself, the court ordered the opening of the mandir for darshan for devotees, and things were moving. In 1989, actually the matter was still in court, and some of the land, so the piece of land that was under the court or under litigation was a small piece of land, 1 point something acres, but nearby some land was there. So Shilanyas, which is the ceremonial laying of the foundation stone, was already done in 1989. Congress was ruling at that time, both center as well as the state, and Vishwa Hindu Parishad went ahead with the Shilanyas in 1989. And then in 1990, which was the most full of event, the year full of event, last and decisive movement, as we can again say, it was a nationwide awareness and momentum creation. There's a series of programs that went throughout Bharat. And I was really lucky to be part of this movement from the very beginning. And first it came Sri Rama Shila Pujan, that we will send a brick with the name Sri Ram, and we will send it to Ayodhya for the building of the Ram Mandir. Imagine how the Hindu society was feeling, that I am going to do puja to this brick and going to send, which is going to be part of the great Ram Mandir that is going to build there. From village to village, from towns, cities, not only in Bharat, even outside of Bharat, from the US, from the UK, from Mauritius, from Trinidad, from Fiji, from several countries. These bricks were collected, and these bricks are still there. The Ram Shilas are stored there. They will be used in the construction of the mandir. Then there was Vijay Yatra during Vijayadashmi. Then the first diya of Diwali in that year was to be lit by the diya or the jyoti that came from the Ram Mandir. So Karyakartas and people, they went out. A great movement and momentum was building. And this kind of culminated in a car seva that was announced in October 30th, 1990. At that time, the Mukhyamantri in Uttar Pradesh was Mulayam Singh Yadav, and because of his politics, he said that car seva wouldn't be allowed. The court did not have the order. The court order was not there, true, but he said that he will make Uttar Pradesh into a prison. Nobody will be allowed to enter. And actually on that day, hundreds and thousands of car sevaks who had gathered in Ayodhya, there was a great struggle. And the forces, police and paramilitary, they were behaving brutally, attacking the car sevaks. With the courage of some car sevaks, they actually went up. They fluttered the Bhagwa on top of the dome. Two brothers were Ram Kumar Kothari and Sharat Kumar Kothari. That day, car seva, only that much could happen. People were walking from all over the place, from throughout Bharat. People had come from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, literally. I myself went as a car sevak, and I witnessed myself that people belonging to all different backgrounds, languages, sampradayas, caste, everybody. The only Nara was Jai Shri Ram, which had united everyone. There were people from Tamil Nadu, Kerala, who didn't know Hindi, a word of Hindi. All they would say is Jai Shri Ram. And the villagers on the way to Ayodhya, everywhere in Uttar Pradesh, they were serving them. They were taking care of them. They were showing their way to the next destination to reach Ayodhya. They had gathered there. They were brutally attacked. Second car seva was announced on 2nd of November once again. And that was again dealt with very brute force. And firing took place. And nobody knows the real numbers of how many car sevaks were killed in the firing. That was the situation. And here, Ram Kumar Kothari and Sharat Kumar Kothari, just two representatives of the many car sevaks that became martyrs on that day. And I think this is their sister. This is a recent picture, but these two were Swayam Sevaks who had gone there. But there were several other car sevaks who gave up their lives on that day. But the movement continued. In 1991, April 5th, there was a massive rally organized in New Delhi in support of the Ram Mandir. You see, this was just 6 months after the car seva in October 1990. An estimated 2.5 million people attended that rally on Boat Club in New Delhi. It shook the government. That was the kind of support it had gathered by now. This is one picture. You can see Advani ji addressing the rally. Sadhvi Ritambara Devi ji addressed the rally, and so many other powerful speakers, and of course, Manya Ashokji Singhal. And this momentum continued. And once again in 1992, car seva was announced, December 6, 1992, and all attempts were being made so that the court ruling will come to allow for the car seva to happen there. You see, but it was taking too long. As they say in Hindi, tarik pe tarik, tarik pe tarik. There are 16 different cases they had to be dealt with, and it was becoming a very, very complicated one. There was a growing feeling amongst Hindus everywhere that what is happening? And the many times this quotation is given, justice delayed is justice denied. 400 plus years we have waited, and now in independent Bharat also, there is no justice. That was the feeling that was growing, and that resulted in this December 6th Kar Seva. This was the structure, but December 6th, the Babri structure was brought down by the Kar Sevaks with their bare hands, you can say. But you see, under the central dome was the murtis of Ram Lala, because it was actually a mandir at that time. Because for past 70 years, puja was going on there. It was a functioning mandir. So the Ram Murtis were shifted and a makeshift mandir was built overnight. Within 6 hours, that dilapidated Babri structure, which was a national shame in a way, gave way, and this makeshift mandir was built overnight with the Ram Lala Murtis immediately installed there, and puja continued. By the time, Kalyan Singh, who was the Mukhyamantri, he said he won't give orders to fire on the Karsevaks. He cannot. And that's why he resigned. And then, of course, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao was there. We all know the background of that one. And the mandir, basically, the makeshift mandir was there until very recently, for the past 30 years, when again it continued in the court. You see, there was a lot of uproar that how can this illegally be destroyed. Actually, nobody was happy about that, including Sarasanga Jalak, Pujane Balasaheb Devras mentioned, but nobody is happy about it, the way it happened. But it could have been avoided if the things were moved faster. This pushing the Hindus to the wall, if this could have avoided. But then there was some who saw something great happening in this one. And Sir V.S. Naipaul, who was a Nobel laureate originally from Trinidad, in the 1993 interview I think to Dilip Padgaonkar, he mentions this. Today, it seems to me that Indians are becoming alive to their history. They, means the invaders, were conquering, they were subjugating, and they were in a country where people never understood this. Only now are the people beginning to understand that there has been a great vandalizing of India. Because of the nature of the conquest and the nature of Hindu society, such understanding had eluded Indians before. What is happening in India is a mighty creative process. So how can the demolition of a building be called a creative process? But actually it was. The old way of thinking, the old shameful monuments had to be removed, and place had to be given for something that is in the heart of the millions and millions of people through a creative process. So this marked that kind of shift, that kind of change in the psyche of the nation. But the legal battle continued, and hurdles were put at every step by selfish politicians, by Marxist historians, and some Muslim leaders who were misled by the Marxist historians. But there were efforts for negotiations as well continuing. None of the negotiations could succeed. But finally, the High Court, the Lucknow bench, gave the judgment in 2010, where they said, well, the evidence really shows that it was a mandir and it really belongs to Hindus. But you have been using that kind of jointly, so why don't you guys share amongst each other? That kind of judgment came in 2010. What happened though, because of this judgment and the excavations by Archaeological Survey of India in 2003, something quite different happened. That overwhelming evidence was produced, all historic or literary evidence, archaeological evidence, and all kinds of evidence. And here, Padma Shri K.K. Muhammad, who was part of the first archaeological excavation or previous archaeological excavation in Ayodhya, he says that archaeologically there is enough evidence to say that below the controversial Babri Mosque there were temple remains. In fact, there was a grand temple structure. During the first excavation, the controversial structure was having 12 temple pillars reused in the mosque. Excavation also exposed bases on which many pillars were standing. But in the second excavation, more than 50 pillars bases in 17 rows were exposed. It means that the structure was imposing and large. Padma Shri Kekam Mohammed is the one who has really exposed how the Marxist historians led by Irfan Habib, he actually misled the Muslim community also, who was ready to negotiate and give up this Babri structure, but discontinued just because of those so-called historians who gave some silly arguments, no evidence, and just based on some kind of falsehood, they were continuing until now, and now they stand fully exposed. But because of the evidence, one, a widespread belief, an unbroken belief that Sri Ram was born at that site. The court was to rule not whether Sri Ram was born there or not, but whether such a belief existed all throughout. So that was proven through historical records. Then again, as I mentioned, the excavations found that continuously from 2nd century BCE, that is 2200 years, a mandir existed at that time. Maybe new mandirs were built, but continuously there was nothing else that happened there, no other activity but a mandir activity. And it was always used by Hindus, not by Muslims. All these were proved in the court. So when it went to the Supreme Court, the evidence was too overwhelming and everything that was given. So November 9th, historically once again, the Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court of India, gave this landmark verdict unanimously by these 5 honorable judges, and the entire site was finally given to the Hindus for the construction of the mandir. And that is why a long saga of 492 long years it took to regain one of the most sacred sites for Hindus, that came to an end with this final and decisive movement that continued for 30 plus years. Naturally, the entire country rejoiced, people rejoiced, but in a very, very restrained and polite manner, we can say. And this is nothing but the result of great sacrifices made by numerous people throughout the history, not just this past 30, 40 years, but past 500 years. And this current movement, the Rama Janmabhumi movement, we can say was the largest people's movement in independent India, possibly even bigger than some of the independence movements. And the culmination of that, we can see, obviously there are many, many people who contributed to it, but 2 of them who are not amongst us, I'll just mention because of their tremendous service and leadership. One, of course, we know Manya Ashokji Singhal, who was the president of Vishwa Hindu Parishad, and he led this movement from the front. He was leading it from the front. He took the first blow in 1990 Karseva, and he appeared there from nowhere. And throughout the movement, he was the one who led it from the front. And the other picture is of Sri Moropantji Pingde, Sangha Pracharak, both of them Sangha Pracharaks, but he was kind of the brain behind, the strategic brain behind this whole movement that was started and continued. So in a way, these 2 are just representative. As I said, many, many, many others who led the movement are there. I cannot mention everybody's names. And then we all know that tomorrow, rather for us, just after a few hours, the Bhumi Puja for the construction of a befitting new mandir at the very same site. So in a way, we are fulfilling our promise given to Bhagwan Sri Ram. Bhagwan Sri Ram is known to keep promises. रघुकुल रीति सदा चली आई, प्राण जाए पर वचन न जाए. हमने कहा था राम लला हम आएंगे, मंदिर वही बनाएंगे. And that promise of ours, of Karsevaks, of Ram Bhaktas, of millions and millions of Hindus is coming true starting tomorrow. And that is why an appeal to all Hindus everywhere throughout the world is to light a diya, offer our prayers, sing bhajans. It is not about just celebrating victory or anything. It is celebrating the occasion that we can now do the puja to Sri Ram in all freedom, with full vigor, and this mandir that is now, this model has been released. This will be a place that Hindus will gravitate to, draw inspiration from, and learn from the great personality of Sri Ram, Maryada Purushottam Sri Ram. So now this is all about our bhakti towards Sri Ram. It is all about how we can emulate the life and the teachings of Bhagavan Sri Ram. This is about that. This is not about victory over something. So what did this movement achieve really? It reinstated the national self-respect and honor, just like the Mandir of Somnath. It unified the nation in the independent India like no other movement, forgetting all differences and all kinds of religious backgrounds and denominational backgrounds. It did unify nation. I myself experienced so many occasions where people saying Ram ke naam pe hum sab ek hain. And then this movement also took the opportunity to once again create awareness in the Hindu society that we have to give up all our weaknesses and wrong practices like caste discrimination, of untouchability, and so on. And symbolically, one of our very good active karyakartas in this movement, Shri Kameshwar Chopalji, who comes from the so-called Dalit background, he was the first one to lay the foundation, the brick of the foundations in Shilanyas in 1989. In Nasik, in the Kalara Mandir, once when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had to do a 4-year satyagraha to gain entry for Dalits, and he could not succeed in the 1920s. But this time, the ancestors, the people from the same families who did the satyagraha with Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, they were taken inside the mandir, and with full respect and honor, they lit the first lamp of Ram Jyoti in the Kalara Mandir in Nasik. Like that, these things were taken. It created great amount of debate and discourse change. What is Bharat? That Bharat is an ancient nation. Ram represents Bharat, not Babar. What Ram stands for, that's what Bharat stands for. And we have common ancestors. We have common values that came to the fore. It increased our aspiration, confidence, and emergence of Bharat. Possibly historians will write later on that this was a turning point in the history of Bharat, that's where the confidence of Bharat was regained. So in all respects, science, technology, economy, commerce, culture, in every aspect, now Bharat is emerging once again on the world stage. You can say that this was a watershed movement or moment in history. But now, after the decision has came, the entire society has shown a great amount of restraint, behave responsibly, with great maturity. We are taking this, as Pujani Sarasangazalak mentioned, this is not to be seen as win and loss, but here we have to move forward. But remember, this is not about history, this is about our future. And if we want the future to be like Ram Rajya, which is a peaceful, prosperous, harmonious kind of society, this particular moment is to usher exactly that kind of future of Bharat is what we look forward to. This is the current kind of a makeshift mandir, temporary mandir, you can say, in Ayodhya right now. And the Ram Shilas as well as the sculpting of the pillars and the stones is continuously going on for past so many years. And that's why the temple construction is going to take less time. And this is the 3D model of the mandir that is there. And this is how Ayodhya must be looking tonight and tomorrow morning, Bharat time, early morning, our time. We will all be sitting with our families, lighting a diya with a dream of a great future for Hindu civilization and entire humanity. We will again pray, chant, take the name of Sri Ram. Jai Sri Ram to all of you.
Dhanyavad, Saumitraji. It's a great journey. And as you rightly concluded, even though it's a lot of happy moment, but it's a new beginning. So with that, I think anyone who is on the Zoom, they can write your questions, and I will be asking the questions to Manya Saumitraji. So please write your questions on the chat. And Saumitraji, I'll just kind of give you the question that is there so far.
Sure.
One thing.
Should I stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, or you can leave it also. It's okay.
Leave it. Sure.
Yeah. So the one question that's a theme is, what's next? In terms like, what is the VHP thinking in terms of next? Like, is it Kashi, Mathura? I think there are like a couple of questions on the topic. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that while the other questions are coming.
Sure. So although I don't have any first-hand information, but I don't believe that is immediately on the agenda. Although that was in 1984, that's what the directive was. But right now, until this temple is built, and it will take some time, this should be the focus, and eventually we'll come to know what are the next steps. But as Vishwendu Prashad's statement also has come, that we'll work towards Ram Rajya now. And that's why building of this temple first, that is the first priority. And that is the only priority for now.
Okay.
But
So
again,
the
that's not my first-hand information. This is my kind of guess from the statements that have come.
So the one more question, especially from your experience, Saumitraji, like how was your experience in the 1990 Kar Seva? Any direct first-hand information that you can share?
Sure. The experience was just amazing. Something that I can never forget. Because first of all, I was very young, but fully involved throughout. But the way I could see our own society from very close quarter, and sometimes we underestimate our own people. But in that movement, I realized the kind of potential that the Hindu society really has. As I mentioned, that in this whole journey, as a Karsevak from Pune until Ayodhya, I could meet people from all different backgrounds throughout Bharat. And they were all going there with one purpose in mind, with one bhav in mind, with one spirit. That was something that was a revelation for me. That was very, very reassuring, actually. And the common villagers. I remember I did Satyagraha in Chaghat. Chaghat is on the border of Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. Because until Madhya Pradesh, we could kind of freely move and go. Although trains were being cancelled, buses were cancelled, it was very difficult. Travel was almost very difficult, and Uttar Pradesh was all totally closed down. So we courted arrest, did Satyagraha. We were put into police trucks, taken to Prayagraj, and put in a temporary jail, which was like a junior college or something. And there thousands of Karsevaks were there, Satyagrahis. At that time, they could not provide everything to us because we were detainees. We were not like criminals. So they had to provide us food and all kinds of amenities. But I saw that people, I saw ladies coming with a full basket of food packets, puri sabji, all kinds of things. And they would come and say, Bhaiya le lo, maine apne haath se banaya hai, kha lo. Because they knew that Karsevaks had come from all over Bharat. Now these are common people. They are not no karyakartas and trained karyakartas. They were coming, and the entire society was like that. Then when we walked from Pratapgarh until Ayodhya, we could not walk straight in a straight line. The villagers will take us from the fields and the like that farms, and then they'll take us to the next village. Everywhere the villagers were ready to welcome us, to feed us, to give us tablets because they felt that we must be very, very tired and having body pain because of that walking. And our spirits were maintained by the people, common people. After walking for almost 60 hours, when my group, we reached Ayodhya, something miraculous happened. We forgot that we had walked for 60 hours, and all the strain and the pain in the body, it vanished in just a moment, just because we reached Ayodhya, which, the dream that we had gone with in our eyes. So like that, there are many, many incidents, but the darshan of the people, while crossing Gomati River, the boatman who crossed us, he said that I have crossed 55,000 people in the past 8 to 10 days. Constantly, he was ferrying people across without charging any money. And these kind of, amazing incidents are there, very, very touching, and just cannot forget them. Very, very, still gives me goosebumps when I think about them.
Wow, 55,000 people by one boatman. That's amazing. So Saumitraji, the next question that is there, I know you meet many people during your interactions, and then you may be meeting Sikh and Muslim leaders as well. So what is their reaction on this verdict?
Yeah, I think what we are reading, we can see that everybody has accepted it generally, and they're happy also about it. You must have read about Iqbal Ansari, who is invited also and is going to go. And he says it's fortunate that it was Bhagwan Ram's wish that he'll be invited and he's going to go. But my personal experience in 1995, when I was a Pracharak in Thane, Maulana Wahiduddin Khan, 50 plus years old, and he was from the very beginning very open-minded and of the opinion that in Ayodhya, at that place, Sri Ram Mandir should be built. So he had come to this Sangha Karalaya, and there was a meeting. 5 of them had come, Maulana, 4 other people with him, and there was a meeting of some Sangha Adhikaris. And I remember clearly that when it was evening time, it was namaz time for them. And that's why they requested, can we do our namaz? So in the Sangha Karalaya, we made one room clear for them, and they offered their namaz right in the Sangha Karalaya. And then again the baitak continued, and later on then they left. I vividly remember this one. So like that, there were a large number of Muslim leaders who are in favor. And as I mentioned that Mr. K.K. Muhammad has written in his or spoken in his interviews that if it were not for the Marxist historians, the Muslim leadership was almost ready to give up the claim, and it would have been an amicable solution to this problem. So that really kept it so long. But otherwise, this was there. Common Muslims, of course, all of your experiences must be there, that they have no issues. Sikhs, yes. When I was a Kar Sevak, there were many Sikhs along with us who were Kar Sevaks themselves. Even in 1992, some of, I think, people in the audience were there in the 1992 Kar Seva. They can say that there were many Sikhs as part of the Kar Seva. Even now, 5 of the Takhts that are there, they have all been invited to the Bhumi Pujan. Let's see if they will show the courage to rise above any kind of politics and reach there.
So Saumitraji, the next question is around Ashokji. I know Ashokji is no more, but I know he was a leading figure right from leading from the front. So any experiences you can share of Ashokji?
Ashokji was a great inspiration. I was in maybe the first year of engineering, and we had a program for Mahavidyalaya in Tarun, Yuvas basically, university students. And it was just before the Kar Seva. And possibly my decision to go to the Kar Seva was because of that one sentence that Manya Ashokji Singhal uttered on that day. It was a big rally. It was we were more than 2,000 university students, open kind of situation. And Ashokji was not supposed to come actually. Somebody else was going to be the Vakta, but Manya Ashokji happened to be in Pune for something else. And then the organizers requested and Ashokji came. He came and he spoke for 10 minutes and he left actually. But what he said was that some of you may have exams coming up, your students. And ये राम जन्मभूमि की लड़ाई चल रही है और लड़ाई और पढ़ाई के बीच में लड़ाई को चुनना चाहिए. So that was his statement. This is not the time to just think about your personal things. And actually, I did go to the Kar Seva just before my exams. After I came back, within 2 weeks, I had my exams. So that was Ashokji, like a lion actually, roaring and leading from the front. And that was the most inspiring part. Until very recently, all of you know, when he gave 45-minute speech in New Jersey at the age of 90 plus.
Mm,
And
mm.
that was his kind of last visit here in
Yes,
September, and in November he passed away in Bharat.
that's
So
right.
he was like that until his last breath.
So another question, Saumitraji, is around this Hagia Sophia in Turkey, right, where they try to reclaim back. So how do we think that this wouldn't happen again? Because I know Muslims are saying, don't forget that Hagia Sophia kind of thing, you know. So any thoughts on that?
Hagia Sophia. Yeah, but they have taken it. But look at the situation then and now, when Khilafat movement had so much following in Bharat, and look at now, after 100 years, situation has changed totally, isn't it?
Mhm.
There is no kind of following or any open support to what is happening in Turkey. Maybe secretly some of them may be thinking,
Mm.
but definitely situation has changed.
Yes.
At least in Bharat it has changed, and even in Turkey it is not the same. When they were trying to uh, what is it, install the Khalifa,
Khalifa, yes.
that time also they didn't succeed. But yes, so they have taken it. You see, there, what has happened is, okay, so it was a cathedral, it became a mosque and like that, or it was turned into a mosque. But the entire population also became Muslim, isn't it, in Turkey? But
Mm.
Bharat, it is not like that. See, Bharat, the population remained Hindu. So then, not having Ram Mandir at Ayodhya, that just doesn't make sense. So I think logically it is totally flawed if somebody says or somebody compares the two. It cannot be compared.
That's correct. So, Sumit, the next question is: I know there are so many family members are alive. I mean, the key breadwinner has sacrificed. So I know we hear that they are being taken care. Or any thoughts on how they are being taken care
Definitely.
after so many sacrifices that they made?
Now it is, of course, 30 years old, but
Hmm.
at that time they were all taken care of. Definitely. You see uh, I forget the name of the Gayatri Devi, I think. She has been,
Gayatri Devi, yes,
so her husband
correct.
will come back. So you can see that the son works in the Kareshala. Kareshala
Hmm.
means the place where they scrub the stones. So like that, everywhere throughout Bharat, wherever it was there, in that pranta, whoever lost life, their kith and kin, they were taken care of. That is natural, isn't it?
Hmm.
Part of the movement,
Correct.
and that time the society was also very supportive. Even now, and we also, whichever organization was there, they were taken care of everywhere.
Hmm. Hmm. So the next question is: it almost like a temple is such a basic thing. We had to fight for the basic thing for so long. So what can we do like such things don't repeat
Correct.
again in the future ever?
No. So that's why we should learn about this. That's why we should learn from history, because if we don't know about our past, we are condemned to repeat it. Huh?
Hmm.
Santayana's famous statement. So, first of all, know about the history. Come to terms with history. You see, history is not to take revenge. That is not the right way of looking at it. We have to come to terms with it, understand it, and definitely we have to move on, but without letting any mistakes repeat. So that is the thing. It took so long to achieve this one, but rest of the things now will be easier. So once this was taken care of, the change in the mindset, shift in the mindset of Hindus, of the entire nation, entire world, to look the way it will look towards us. So this was the hardest part. Henceforth, it will not be this hard, but we have to definitely be vigilant, very conscious, aware, and very systematically, calmly, coolly, without any kind of ill will towards anyone. We have to work, because that's not how we come to terms with history.
Hmm.
Without ill will, we have to move forward, but understand what happened, and take lessons and shape the future. So that's why I started with that quote, that this is about the future and not about the past.
Yes. So another question, Saumitraji, is around what are we do? I mean, how can we increase this understanding about the history, knowing like so much of the outsiders have written our history. So among our youth, among the second generation, how are we going to work to improve the understanding of the true history of the Bharat?
Yeah. So I think we've already started through Dharma internship program this year.
Yes.
So the projects were, part of that was these projects to learn. So definitely, whatever we can do through HSS, we can continue doing through our Baudhiks. But some of our Swayamsevaks, if they really are interested in history, other humanities, we should encourage. In the UK, there are some Swayamsevaks who are really interested in these subjects. They have done masters, they have taken PhD, and they are getting thorough into it, getting deeper into this one. So having our own people learning it systematically. Of course, there are challenges there also, because the domination of such kind of historians is in there as well. So in Bharat, hopefully it will change. It is changing bit by bit. It will take a longer effort here outside of Bharat to change that. But we also have our Hindu University of America that has started now. So we can opt for courses at the Hindu University of America. Online courses are there. Like that, all of us knowing basics, some of us going deeper. And even without formal training, we can definitely take a subject and go deep into it, understand it, and be masters in that one. That is also possible. So like that, through our Baudhiks, through our programs and more formal programs, we can bring about the change and then write about it. I think more and more people, more and more of us becoming public intellectuals and writing blogs, writing in mainstream. I think that is also very important.
So I think we will probably take two more questions. The next question, Saumitraji, is there any good source or any book where we can learn about the history of Ram Mandir?
Yes.
And also the details about archaeological evidence and all the Supreme Court proceedings where the evidences were discussed? So is there any source for that?
So there is a website which is called Ayodhya Facts, I believe. Maybe somebody can search and post in the text. That has a lot of documents. All the court verdicts are there, and a lot of video documentaries are there, video interviews are there. So in one place you will find, it was sent by Siddheshji, so you can search and post it. I think it's ayodhyafacts.in. And so that is one good repository. If somebody is really wants to go through the court verdicts, you're welcome. The first 2010 High Court verdict is only 5,000 pages long, and this latest Supreme Court verdict is 1,045 pages long. It is all available online. You may want to go and search for yourself. But two books written by Meenakshi Jain. Meenakshi Jain, she's an historian, and she did very good research. All historical evidences, archaeological evidences. There are two books written by her. They are available online on Amazon, I think. So those are two good books. Then, of course, interviews by K.K. Mohammed are there. Some of his videos are there. Then one book by Konrad Elst, which was written back then, Ayodhya and After, that is also there. But all these are available on that one site, ayodhyafacts.in, I believe. ayodhyatemple.org.
Ram Mandir getfacts.in.
Yeah.
I'm just posting it to everyone.
Yeah.
The one messages I'm getting it. It says, okay.
You want to know?
You will take only one more question and we'll end this now.
Yeah, rammandir.getfacts.in, correct.
rammandir.getfacts.in. That's the website. I'm trying to copy it.
Meenakshi Jain. Those are not on this one, but separately you can read that one.
Huh.
Her videos also, they're very, very educative videos.
Okay. So I think we have concluded. I did not see any other questions coming through, Saumitraji. So anything you want to conclude, Saumitraji? I think we are done with all the questions.
Light diya, light up and sing, chant bhajans, Ram Nam tonight with all devotion, full heart, and let us watch it live if we can wake up that late. If not tomorrow, of course, we can watch in the morning. But it's a great, happy moment, and with all humility and all devotion, let us celebrate it at our own places. Of course, keeping all the rules of the pandemic in mind.
Yes.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ram.
One quick information for all. Please light a diya, post a picture on social media with the hashtag light a diya for Ram. That is request done by the national team. At the same time, if we all can watch tomorrow also in the night today 2 a.m. and on the time scare, people can watch lively Ram on the time scare also and in Bharat also.
Dhanyavad everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.